sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, and hoping we'll meet again. Oh, life could be a dream. If I could take you up in paradise, I'd love. If you would tell me I'm the only one that you love. Life could be a dream, sweetheart. Hello, hello again. Shaboom, and hoping we'll meet again. Oh, shaboom, 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 shaboom,
Wake up to a cloudy day, dark rolls in and it starts to rain. Staring out to the cage like walls, time goes by and the shadows crawl. Crushing candy, crushing pills, got no job, mom pays my bills. Texting exes, get my fills, sweating bullets, Netflix chills. World's out there singing the blues, 20 more dead on the evening news. Think to myself, really what's the use? I'm just like you, I was born to lose. Why, oh why can't you just fix me? When all I want's to feel numb, but the medication's all gone. Why, oh why does God when all I want to get high and forget this so-called life? I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. Can't wait to feel better than I ever will. Tack that shit like a kid on Benadryl. Chase it down with a hopeful smile. Hate myself, I can go for miles. They say family's all you need. Someone to trust can help you breathe. Inhale that drug but you start to choke. You fall on the outs of an inside joke. Why, oh why can't you just fix me? When all I want's to feel numb, but the medication's all gone. Why, oh why does God hate me? Cause I've seen enough of it, heard enough of it, felt enough of it, had enough of it. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. Superman is a hero, but only when his mind is clear though. He needs that fix like the rest of us, so he's got no fear when he saves that bus. All the stars in the Hollywood Hills, Snapchat live when they pop them pills. All those flavors of the rainbow, too bad that shit don't work though. Your friends are high right now, your parents are high right now. That hot chick's high right now, that cop is high right now. The president's high right now, your priest is high right now. Everyone's high as fuck right now and no one's ever coming down. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate. I am so freaking bored, nothing to do today. I guess I'll sit around and medicate.
In this video we're going to be flying a light missile launcher kiting breacher. For our tank we're going to be using a medium ancillary shield booster with Navy 50 charges, and we're going to have an anti-EM screen reinforcer for a little bit of EM resist, and a small core defense field extender for a little bit of extra buffer. Due to the Alpha Clone's naturally bad capacitor, we're going to be using a cold gas 5M enduring micro warp drive to help out the cap per cycle a little bit. And we're also going to be using a pair of capacitor power relay 2s to help our regen. We're also throwing in a tracking disruptor to make it more difficult for our opponents to actually hit us, and a small ancillary current router for fitting, and we're going to be using a warp disruptor 2 for the longer point range. In this fight we have a breacher warp in on us. We immediately establish our 17 km orbit and get our drones out, load some Mjolnir ammo to go into his EM resist hole for the shields, and start hitting him. Looking at his speed, he's going about 1.5k, so he's heating his AB, and based off of that we can determine that he is probably dual tank fit with an ancillary armor repair and a medium ancillary shield booster. We'll have to get through his shields to determine that. We see that he is trying to slingshot us to an extent. It's not working very well, but we start focusing on his ship and then looking at our own. If he ever gets too close, within, say, 14 kilometers, we plan on clicking away from him in space rapidly to start moving our ship away, and we can reapproach and establish our point and orbit again if we need to. At this point we get through his shields and we see that he does actually have a small ancillary armor repair by the massive amount of chunks that are going up there. The ANSO will only have 8 charges, and then he'll have to make a decision of whether to reload the ANSO or run it without haste. We decide to reload to Nova, as it'll break through his armor a lot faster. And we can see this almost immediately, as we start chunking his armor really hard. And around here we're also going to see that he has run out of paste for his repping, as the amount repped goes way, way down. From this kill now, we can actually determine that he did burn out his medium ancillary shield booster and potentially the prop mod with it, because the Ansel actually still has 1 charge inside of it, yet when he was near death he was not cycling the Ansel. In this fight we take the gate on an Imperial Navy Slicer. We're not massively confident in our chances of victory here, but we want to see how well we can actually mitigate his damage using our tracking disruptor. So we want to try and pull range and just try and work him down slowly and see what we can do. Here we switch over from a tracking speed disruption script to an optimal range disruption script in our tracking disruptor to try and limit his range so that he might hit us a little less hard. Here we can see that the optimal range script and tracking disruptor actually help to mitigate a massive amount of damage, but he quickly pulls in and starts applying again. In this clip we bait a Kestrel and a Republican Fleet Firetail into a Novice Plex. Our plan here is to pull a little bit of range, see how each one's fit, and hope that one has an afterburner and one has a micro. So we can peel one off of the other and try and get a nice little solo fight while the other one's trying to burn in. You see that the Republican Fleet Firetail is actually AB fit, while the Kestrel is micro fit, so we're pulling the Kestrel off. We also see that he's warp disruptor fit, so this is going to be likely a light missile kiting Kestrel, so he's going to most likely be buffer fit, so we have to out tank him In order to out-tank him, we're going to be heating every cycle of our Antcell. It's good to note that not only does the Antcell cycle faster when heated, but it also gives you a little bit of extra shield rep as well per boost cycle. And you'll see me do this just about every time I use an ancillary shield booster. So this should push us a little bit above his raw buffer between all of our rep cycles. Right here we start to see a lot of mismanagement of heat from myself in the mid-rack, and this ultimately leads me to burning out my prop line. As the Kestrel dips into structure, he starts to pull off to try and save himself. His friend is still quite a ways away from us and won't be able to catch us in time. I'm just going to sit on grid for a little bit here and try and pelt him with a few missiles to see if he sticks around and dies. Without my prop mod, I'm unable to keep up with the Kestrel, so he ultimately gets away. It's a dumb mistake on my part, but it happens. But it was a fun little fight. In this clip we end up sliding in on a Thrasher, which can be dangerous depending on his fit. He can get initial range control on us, he can give us a very bad day. We determined that this Thrasher pilot is likely crabbing because he spent a lot of time not locking us after our initial warp in. So at this point we actually see a Warp Disruptor come off and Thrasher onto us, and this is usually indicative of an Arty Thrasher, so we have to start considering that he is an Arty fit and that he could chunk us pretty decently. Here we see the Thrasher actually is Arty fit as he chunks about half of our shields. At this point it probably would have been a good idea to start adapting in orbit to get a little bit more transversal and maybe negate a little bit more of that damage, but we don't feel too threatened with the damage that's being applied because the Arty has a really long cycle time. While this Thrasher made many mistakes, by far his worst mistake was using only one ammo type, and that is Quake, with a 75% reduced optimal range, so it's very short ranged, and a 25% tracking speed bonus. So he wasn't going to be able to hit us at all. If he had, say, depleted uranium or something like that in his cargo, he could have refit to that and given us a lot of trouble. In this fight, we end up sliding a gate on the Thrasher. When we land, we actually see that he's sitting at 0 on the beacon warp-in. This is usually indicative that it's going to be a brawling ship. For the Thrasher, I'd expect a scram and a micro-warp drive with a shield tank and probably 200mm auto cannons. So we pretty quickly pulled out of the Thrasher's scram range, but that's not the end of our problems. The Thrasher with the micro-warp drive is probably going to go about 2 to 2.5k with heat, and it could potentially slingshot us pretty well if he's a decent pilot. So we do notice that he is medium ancillary shield booster fit, so we need to wait for him to run out of charges, and then on his reload we might be able to chunk through a little bit of armor and hull. But we also need to get him to run out of the charges in his cargo hold, so his reloads, and this is really where our cap mods come to shine on the Alpha Clone. As Alpha Clones have really bad capacitor regen, this actually enables us to stick around long enough to win the fight. Around this point we actually start to see some pretty serious limitations to the auto-orbit system. We're trying to auto-orbit at about 18k right here, but we consistently pull out past point range, which is 24 kilometers, and becomes quite an issue. We find during the fight that keep at range is actually a better option. We saw a tower on a gate that was pretty keen to fight, so we ended up luring him over to this large to bring him off the gate so that he couldn't jump through as he started to get low. We see a warp disruptor get applied here, and generally this tells us that he is a missile fit. We can expect potentially about 1k volleys. This could become an issue, as 3 or 4 of those without us repping could actually volley through us, so we're going to have to pay a lot of attention here. At this point we've broken through his shields, and we're now in armor, at which point we decide it'll be better to switch to some Nova ammo for some explosive damage to try and burn through him a little bit faster, as we're on a timer, because we can only really stay within point range until our Ancil charges run out and we don't have enough buffer to survive another volley, at which point we would have to warp out. Now that we're out of Ancil charges, we really need to mitigate as much damage as possible, so we're heating the micro warp drive so that hopefully we go fast enough to mitigate some of the missile damage, as they have to spend more time traveling towards us, and it really pays off here. Looking at this kill mill, we can see that the fit is far from optimal. We have a very large amount of Meta Zero modules, from the guns to the warp disruptor to the ballistic control units and even the ammo. The reason I chose to include this kill mill is it really shows the amount of effectiveness you can have with this fit with some proper module management and piloting. In this fight, we end up taking the gate on another breacher. This could be potentially dangerous if he scram webs us down and keeps us from getting range control, but he's actually sitting out at range. We managed to break his scram web and establish a good orbit. At this point, he doesn't seem to be making any fancy piloting moves like trying to heat the AV and slingshot us or anything like that, so in our opinion, it's just a matter of time before he falls. He seems to be using a lot of his shield charges and not letting himself dip into the armor, so we're just going to keep the EM loaded until we can chew through enough of his shield charges and potentially a couple of reloads. He does send a pair of hobgoblins out against us, and at this point that's the only thing that could damage us, so we decide to switch off of him and start to kill his drones to protect our longevity here. At this point, he seems to run out of cap charges for his medium ancillary shield booster, so we're just actually going to keep the Mjolnir loaded for a little bit to see if he has a reload that he hasn't gotten off yet. Here we see him start to wrap his shields back up, so he just got another reload off. We can expect another 9 charges out of that Enso. Even though this seems like a pretty lengthy fight, we're actually not spending that much effort or concentration on this fight, as we have a pretty stable orbit on the dude, and he doesn't seem to be making any slingshots or anything like that towards us. At this point, we see another member of the Breachers faction in Faction Warfare come into the site and go straight for me. We actually have to abandon the Breacher that we've been working on in order to fight this guy off, so we pull him off the Breacher a little bit. And he seems all too happy to follow us up the dude he's trying to save as we pull him off and start to work on his tank. At this point, the Breacher is pulling in a little bit closer, so we decide to relock him so that after we kill the Condor, hopefully we can go after the Breacher. However, this Breacher has other plans as he decides to warp off and leave the guy who came in to save him to die. That must feel bad, man. I feel bad for this Condor. So to wrap up this video, the fights that you're going to engage in are going to take a fair amount of time, so be patient with it and keep your eye on D-skin. Make sure you heat every cycle of your ancillary shield repair. The reason for this is that your shield boost amount increases as well as the shield boost speed. So you'll actually get more out of your 9 ancil charges if you heat every single cycle. Your ammo choice is very important as a general rule if you're firing at a T1 ship. If you think they're shield tanked, you want to fire EM ammo, which can be your Mjolnir, and if they are armor tanked, then you're going to want to fire explosive, which is going to be your Nova. With this fit, you also have a very large amount of disengageability. This means that as long as you're just sitting at point range on the ships that you're engaging, if you start to take too much damage or you can't hold out long enough to kill your target, you can always just burn off and go ahead and warp out. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Fly dangerous.